Hello everyone, welcome to Azure Psych, and today I've got for you another community response video. If you don't know what these are just where I answer questions that have been left for me on my community response tab and give credit to the people who asked those questions. So if you'd like to ask me a question in the future and be featured on a video, make sure you subscribe and you keep an eye on my community tab. I try to do these every 2 months or so. Let's get into it. To start off, I've got two questions here that are pretty similar, so I'm going to kind of group them into one question and answer them. So Deanna Hidalgo, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, and Banana Bomb both essentially ask, are personality types something that we're born with? Do they develop through our life? And is it something that essentially changes? So if you're talking about personality versus personality type, we have to look at this in kind of two different ways in terms of psychology. Because in terms of general personality, like traits, like neuroticism, openness, things like that, we do see kind of gradual shifts and changes throughout the life as people develop. We see changes in how a person acts in response to information. But the style in which they respond to certain situations, the style in which they are interacting with their outer and inner world usually doesn't change. And this is essentially what Jung was trying to categorize in his personality typology system. Because cognitive functions aren't essentially your exact personality. They're not how you act. They're the way in which you process information, which can influence the way you act, but it is not 100% correlated with the way you act. So in Carl Jung's system, you are essentially kind of born with a type. Now, whether or not that type is developed in the first few years of life, whether or not you're born strictly genetically with certain type, this is something that I can't answer because I don't know. In my personal opinion, I usually like to say that someone is likely born within their quadra, so that means they have 4 kind of cognitive functions instilled into their genetic makeup. And then they are going to choose preferences within that as they age through the first few years of their life. So they might kind of pick introverted intuition as their favorite function to use as a child if it's something that is in their function stack, maybe extroverted thinking if that's in their function stack as well for like an INTJ or an ESFP. And then they're going to prioritize this and it's going to naturally become the dominant function through repeated use. And I think that you'll often see that certain functions fit certain scenarios and environments better than others, which is maybe why you see a difference in how common certain functions are as dominant or repressed functions. But that's just my opinion. So to answer the question, really, no, your personality type does not change, but you do develop as an individual in the way in which you represent your personality, and your personality traits and characteristics as an individual certainly do change. So, Stan Yesup asks, do you have any energy management strategies for INTJ and INFJs or tips related to burnout? So, energy management for these two types is something that's kind of weird because a lot of the times you'll see that the way in which they prioritize their time and their energy is related to their dominant function. So they like to do things related to introverted intuition, and even for introverted sensing dominant types, this can be very similar as well. So you'll find that you can't naturally be in a mode of introverted perceiving if you're constantly forced to be doing things that require your direct kind of extroverted attention. So in my opinion, the best way to go about managing your time and energy is to really engage in that extroverted judging function, either extroverted thinking and extroverted feeling, and prioritize time management in some sense. Find a way to systematize the way in which you're interacting with your world so that you can have more free time available to do the things that you enjoy. So for me personally, free time is like one of my top priorities in life, and you all would be amazed at how much time I waste just enjoying free time. Because for me, it's important to just be having time to do what I enjoy doing. I play a lot of video games in my free time. Sometimes I read, sometimes I'm studying for videos, but I really enjoy my free time and I actually prioritize it over things like work a lot of the time because for me, it's more important. Now, it's not more important than things like school for me. So if I had a hierarchy, it'd be like school, then free time, then things like work. But that's just me personally because I'm kind of weird. So when it comes to burnout, this is a whole different question. And burnout for introverted intuitives, especially in the creative field, is something that I think is really common. Because introverted intuitives, instead of enjoying the idea of creating via expressiveness, via extroverted intuition, introverted intuitives usually have something that inspires them. They are inspired to want to create, and then they will put a lot of energy into creating some singular thing. And then after they finish that singular thing, it might be so successful that the world is expecting more from them, but they don't have more ready yet. And this is the problem because introverted intuitives often need time to process their creativeness. They need time to really think about things and understand what it is that they're trying to be creative with if they want to make something that's valuable in terms of creativity. Extroverted intuitives are usually a little bit more flexible. They're able to kind of pump one thing out after another in terms of creativity because they are naturally creative and expressive in their creativity. So with introverted intuitives, I would say if you're going to be in some sort of creative place or you're trying to manage burnout, you want to allow yourself time between the things that you have to do. Don't expect to be pumping out, 2 or 3 things like a week. Like even for me as someone who is a content creator doing videos, when I created videos, I used to try to do 2, sometimes 3 videos a week. And I realized that I was forcing myself to produce content I didn't like because it didn't match my creative vision, or I wasn't being authentic to myself. I was just trying to release something, to have something out on the web, to have something on my channel. And for me, it's more important to have authentic and meaningful videos on my channel. So I reduced the amount of videos that I produce, but I kind of put more energy into the few things that I'm allowing myself to have more time to produce. And I would recommend doing that kind of similar process with a lot of things if you're an introverted intuitive type. Pink Ribbon asks, when there is something out of your control that gives a valid reason to panic or get anxious, how do you calm down for the moment or a longer period of time to keep a clear head or at least keep up productivity? So the answer to this is going to vary from person to person, but I can tell you what my process is. And my process is going to be different from a lot of people because my neuroticism score in terms of like Big 5 trait neuroticism is quite low. I'm very low in volatility, emotional reactivity, things of that nature. And I have a kind of high anxiousness threshold. In fact, I'm someone who's often energized by something that would be considered usually anxious. I enjoy the pressure of kind of working on something difficult occasionally. So things like that rarely stress me out. Now, things that are out of my control can be stressful. So one thing, for example, that comes to mind when I think of something that's stressful and out of my control is like a few months ago, a big, huge storm came around my apartment, and I live in the woods. Like there's trees all around my house. And when something like that happens, it's kind of like panic inducing for me because I can't do anything about that. What am I going to do? It's storming outside. I live in like a 2-room apartment. There's trees all around me. I could like get in my car and go somewhere, I guess. But for the most part, I'm just kind of in my apartment, and for all I know, a tree could come through and, crash into me. And that's something that's kind of panic inducing for me because I don't feel like there's really anything that I could be doing in those moments. And even if I were to prepare as best I could, there's only so much that I could do within my given means. So those are difficult situations for me. And I try to just kind of calm down and assess the situation when I'm in those types of situations. So for example, when that happened, I came and I just chilled in my living room, which is the center of my apartment, because I knew that that was going to be the safest place to be during a heavy storm. And that was about the most I could do. I had my phone near me, I was dressed, I had my shoes nearby in case something happened and I needed to go. My wife was also with me. And I tried to make the best out of these negative situations. But you have to remember, it's okay to be anxious occasionally. It's okay to not always know what's going to go on because, we're human. We don't have the ability to understand and have foresight towards everything that we're interacting with. So having those natural kind of anxious responses to certain things is normal and okay, especially if it's something that's out of your control. That's why anxiousness exists as a feature of humans, because it puts us in a state of high alert. It's something that helps us interact with dangerous situations by putting us on high alert. Anxiousness and anxiety is only something, in my opinion, that should really be worried about when you're having these types of responses towards things that you don't think deserve those types of responses. If you're feeling anxiety towards things that are kind of natural, just human interactions that wouldn't normally require some sort of anxious response, then is maybe when you would want to seek help or really have concerns about your levels of anxiety. Now, of course, I'm not a medical doctor or a psychiatrist, so I can't give you like any professional opinions there, but that's just what I tend to think. Another 2 similar questions here. Insert type asks, do you think MBTI will ever become accepted by science? And Y2K Media asks, do you think that the scientific method is a fitting way of inquiry in the field of psychology? So when it comes to do I think whether or not MBTI will ever be seen as scientific, I have kind of opinions about that. And I have a video I released just a few weeks ago called Should We Treat Personality Typology as a Science? And I recommend you go view that if you're interested in my kind of full response to that type of question. But essentially, I don't think it will be, and I don't think it should be. I think personality typology should instead be seen as a philosophy of understanding personality instead of a strict science, because if we try to operationalize something and create these hard, strict definitions, we're losing out on the qualitative value that Jung's original system brought to us. And I think that's why Jung wasn't interested in measuring these functions in people and instead used it as more so a qualitative, descriptive version of explaining the human psyche. It was less about this, strict kind of operationally defined definition and more so just about understanding it from a very human perspective. So in my opinion, that's why typology won't be seen as a science and probably shouldn't be seen as a science, but I think that's good and I think that increases the value of personality type. Now, whether or not science is a good way to inquire into the field of psychology is a similar question, but it's also something that's a bit different because there are things in psychology that I think should be measured strictly. Like when we're thinking about some of the classic behaviorist models of psychology, like Skinnerism and all that type of stuff, when we're measuring response times, things of these nature, I do think that these can be seen as hard sciences. But you also have to ask yourself, what is a hard science? Because if you're talking about something that's a universal law, then no, you're going to find very few universal laws in the field of psychology. There's like almost none because there's 7+ billion people. They all have different minds, even if they're very, very similar. But what we do see with psychology is that there's large representations of the norm. So this is how 98% of people are going to think about certain situations when they're presented with certain things. And we can see that in certain experiments like the social learning experiments in children, or if you show a child some sort of model for them to watch, they're going to kind of copy those behaviors a lot of the times. And that's something that we see in most children. Or even when you look at things like reflexes, which are a biological thing in infants where they respond to certain physical stimuluses in very exact certain ways. These are things that are rooted in our psychology as well, but tend to be close to laws. Close to 100% truths when we look at the wide spectrum of humans. So no, psychology is not really a hard science, but it's something that I don't think exactly can be because of the nuanced differences in the human psyche and the human mind based on how complex the human brain is as an organ. UB asks, I just visited your website and found that you have some text/blogs, and I really enjoyed them, on same or similar subjects from your videos. Do you first write or talk to the camera? How can you formulate your ideas better by speaking or by writing? Even if not real writing or talking is the case, which form do you lean to when organizing your thoughts? So this is a really interesting question, but my creative process is really weird when it comes to YouTube and type and things of that nature. So YouTube for me is a secondary goal in life because first and foremost, I'm interested in my graduate studies as a student. So school and becoming a clinical psychologist are my number one goal in life. And having this successful YouTube channel, it's almost like a secondary hobby for me, where it's something that I do and I enjoy putting out content, but I don't make a ton of money from YouTube. Even my business doing typing sessions is technically more important for me because it pays more of my living. So the amount of creative energy and thought that I put into my videos varies depending on where I'm at and what I'm doing. So sometimes I will plan out videos for the next week, but a lot of the time, and you can ask people in my Discord server because they know me fairly well, I will literally think of a video idea the morning of the day that I have set aside for creating a video. So instead of constantly planning out what I'm going to be doing each week and pre-planning all of my videos, what I will do is I will schedule an allotted time on a specific day to go through the entire creative process of dealing with a video. So for example, I'm recording this today, it's Thursday, the day before this video is going to go up. So from the moment I wake up in the morning until 3 p.m., I have allotted to do everything related to a video because I'm going to be home alone in the house. So that involves coming up with the idea for the video, which in this case isn't what happened because I asked you all these community questions, but on a normal video day, or when I'm recording a normal video, I would spend that time spending about an hour or two coming up with a topic or an idea for a video. Then I'll spend 30 minutes to an hour kind of planning what the video might be about. And then for me, I usually just jump right into it because if I'm making a video on a topic, it's about something that I feel confident in my knowledge about. I don't make a video on a topic if it's something that I'm really kind of unsure on, or I have to feel like I have to do a ton of research to do the video, because for me, I want it to be an expression of what I really know and what I'm interested in. in. So for me, it's very not inspirational. What's the word I'm looking here? For me, it's very inspired when I try to do a video. It's something that I'm genuinely interested in or something that I'm inspired by. And occasionally inspired is the way in which I'll come about having a topic idea for a video. So I'll be inspired by something throughout the week, and then I'll jot it down in my notepad on my phone. Like, okay, this is something that was interesting to me and might be a good video idea. So I'm going to do this. Now, I know I just kind of went on a little tangent there, but let's shift to the other part of that question do you tend to write first or talk first when it comes to creating? Which of these is easier for you to organize your thoughts? So what's easier for me to organize my thoughts is writing. I am actually it's one of the few skills that I will say that I'm quite good at is writing. I scored very high on like the writing GRE, for example. Verbal intelligence is just kind of my one thing that I can do. And writing is very easy for me. I prefer writing when it comes to presenting my thoughts because I have time to reformulate them, to kind of really manage the way that they're perceived. When I'm saying words, it's hard for me to kind of understand how the other person might receive them. Like right now, I'm just kind of saying words and I'm not really thinking about them because it's coming off the top of my head. I much prefer to have time to write to kind of understand what it is that I'm going to be talking about or presenting to another person. But most of the time when it comes to my videos, I do a video then a blog because the blog allows me to reflect on the ideas that I presented in the video and really reformulate them and talk about things that I missed because I don't want to make the blog and then use the video to talk about things that I missed. I want to create the video and then if I think of something later that I think would be in the same kind of topic that would be interesting to talk about, I will make the blog to make sure that I cover those points that I missed that I think are still interesting. All right, everybody, thank you for the questions. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to all of them. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. Keep an eye out because in the near future, I'm planning to do a live stream and I'm able to answer many more questions throughout the live stream because they tend to be in a more rapid fire succession. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out. I would like to let everybody know that I am doing a typing and coaching session sale on my website at sourceselect.com. $10 off all sessions, either coaching or typing. If you use the code GIFT, capital G-I-F-T, you'll get $10 off. So if you're interested in getting a typing session from me the entire month of December 2020, it's going to be $10 off if you use code GIFT. So check out my website, sourceselect.com, if you're interested in learning about your personality type and what that means for you. This has been Asura from Asura Psych. Have a good one.